Part that it shows as being, it talks about, refers to being cooked, is just the eye of the meat, and it uses a sous vide technique, whereby it's marinated, wrapped or sealed in a vacuum packed bag and cooked in an immersion circulator at a controlled temperature. I don't remember what the temperature is off the top of my head, for a pre-prescribed amount of time. The meat is actually first smoked, then it's vacuum packed with this herb marinade, cooked in a sous vide style, and then removed from the bag and seared in the pan, and basted and glazed with a little bit of buckwheat, honey, and butter at the end, just to finish it off before it goes onto the. But I haven't finished here yet. Okay, so the first stage is to remove the whole eye of the meat and the first part of the belly off of the ribs and move that to the side. The next thing you're going to need to be able to do now is to, I mean, you can roast this as, oh, sorry, the next thing that you're going to do, if you're using the loin, it applies to the loin. If you're using rack, this won't apply, is that there is the tenderloin on the inside of the ribs here. So in this case, I'm going to remove the tenderloin, which at the leg end has got a large amount of meat, and as it passes through the loin to the point where the ribs start, it feathers down to almost to nothing, and it ends right here just before the rack starts, and it's just held in place to the inside of the ribs with a little bit of connective tissue, and that gets removed like that. So that's my tenderloin, and that's my loin. So I'll come back to that in just a second. The next thing then is to separate the bones into smaller pieces so we can roast them properly in order to make our sauce. Okay. So in that case, even though this appears to be like a solid piece of bone, when you look on that flat cut edge, you can see these little white pieces here, the cartilage that joins the vertebrae together. If you find the perfect spot, you can cut right through that cartilage and separate each vertebrae without using a cleaver. But so I'm looking here, this is solid bone here, and there's a little line here that runs between the two, and there's soft tissue in between. Get the knife in the right spot and just press it through, and it will pass through, and you'll be able to break it. So I'm looking for these little white cartilage spots here. Sometimes a little bit of silver skin right up on the widest end. We just remove that last little bit of silver skin. We can leave this fat in place here. And in the recipe, it doesn't really talk about what to do with the tenderloin. It just, in fact, doesn't even really mention the tenderloin. What I usually do in the class is, with the loin meat, once it's been cooked in the circulator and it comes to the last stage where it gets seared in the pan, I'll add the the lamb tenderloin, seasoned nicely, and just sear it in the pan with the meat while we're browning the eye of the meat at the end. And it just takes maybe a couple of minutes on each side to be cooked nicely, medium rare. And that's the tenderloin. Okay. It talks about removing just the eye of the meat, which is what I'm going to show you here now, which we're going to need for both techniques, is to just, so this is the fat and the skin side, we turn it over, and we look for this spot where this eye of the meat attaches to the belly. If this is the rack, it's going to be at the part where it joins the loin. It's going to be like this. It's going to be wide and clean, and as it passes forward towards the neck, this is going to get a little bit narrower, okay? But it's just held in place with a little bit of connective tissue, and again, just with my hand pulling it away from that. This piece will almost pull away, much like the tenderloin did. Sorry, I'm doing two stages at once here. Sorry, I want to, especially in the rack end, this piece will, like I've just done there, once you find the right seam, this will just almost peel away like this. Okay, I'm going to hang on to this just for a second because we're going to come back to that in a second. So now we've got our eye of the meat here, our loin almost boneless, almost ready to cook. Skin that's here. By just trimming the silver skin away. The reason why we're taking this off is when we cook this, this will not break down. When you cook this, it's going to curl up, or it's going to want to curl up. So and also is not really very digestible. It's very chewy. We remove that surface silver skin like so. Again, this can go into your sauce. It's going to give you lots of flavor. That is the main piece of meat. So in the manual, it then just talks about removing this piece and making our marinade, which I'll come to in a second, putting this inside a vacuum pack bag, smoking this first over a little bit of hay to develop some flavor, then putting it in a vacuum pack bag with the marinade and sealing it and cooking it sous vide style, just that eye of the meat only. So if you have the facilities to do that, is the herb and garlic marinade or purees, olive oil, rosemary, parsley, garlic, a little bit of I think star anise in there, ground up, and normally, so as I said, this will get smoked, cold smoked for about 20 minutes, and then we'll go into a vacuum pack bag with a spoonful of this sealed